Hello, this is Kyla from Hidden Gems Literary Emporium. Today we have Mr. Charlie Kratovil.
Kyla, good to be with you. Thank you so much. It's an honor and a privilege to speak to you. And I must say, I'm so proud of you and what you've done here.
Well, I always tell people that this effort literally started on a prayer. It got rolling before we even got here. And so we're just honored to be here in New Brunswick, and you love New Brunswick too.
I do. Okay. Great city.
Yeah, and you're the editor of New Brunswick Today.
Yeah, that's how we got to know each other.
Yes, because I used to work with you.
Yeah.
And Raymond too.
Yes.
Yes, I know a few other people too. And so you are the unofficial, almost was official mayor of New Brunswick, right?
I'm definitely very involved and, know a lot of people around town. I've become very invested here, first as a Rutgers student and, now as a editor of a newspaper.
Right. Where are you from?
First place I lived when I came home from the hospital as a baby was Paterson, New Jersey.
Oh, okay.
And as a baby moved to Central Jersey, Middlesex Borough, went to like elementary school there, and then middle school I was actually in Pennsylvania, Lower Providence, Pennsylvania, and then moved back to Central Jersey, went to Hillsborough High School for my final 3 years of K through 12, and then I came here to go to Rutgers and never left.
Wow. Did you go to Rutgers for journalism?
I did. That was my major, journalism and media studies.
Same like Ray.
Right.
How did you know? Well, did you know when you were young that you wanted to be a journalist?
Not so much. I definitely was interested in, media, television, more so, like comedy and stuff like that. So when I was looking at college, I was looking at it more as trying to get into television or radio. And, ended up in the journalism program here. And the more I learned about it, the more I realized how critically important it is to, democracy and everything else that we depend on. And, ultimately saw how important it's been historically. And, the more I learned about it, the more I got interested in it. And, still didn't even think I would end up working in the field because it's, notoriously difficult field to make a living in these days. But got very fortunate, and one of the first jobs I had out of college was working with a nonprofit called the Citizens Campaign, and they hired me to start an online newspaper in the city of Paterson.
Oh, wow.
I lived when I was a little baby, and so I got to go back and learn from one of the best journalists in New Jersey, Joe Malanconico, who was our editor that we hired. I kind of helped him learn how to use the internet and technology, and he helped me learn how to be a solid local reporter. And together we kind of figured out how to start an online news outlet there. And then, the rest is history. Started New Brunswick Today here after that.
Okay, was there just one day in your life where you were like, I'm going to start a newspaper, and here it is, New Brunswick Today? Or was it a process, or did it go through phases? Sure.
I do definitely have to give credit to a lot of the folks I met in activist circles. Worked on a lot of really cool campaigns as a student and got to know some really great people, including Sean Monahan, who kind of gave me the idea to start doing local stuff. It started as just like email, kind of email blast to everybody I knew in New Brunswick with, different links to different coverage that was already out there from other media outlets with my own kind of commentary and insights. And then, that quickly grew into, making a full-fledged website, and then eventually, bilingual, print edition, videos, live streaming, all the stuff that we do today. And I do think that there was definitely a watershed moment. It was a tragedy when Barry Deloach was killed by the New Brunswick police. And that was just a couple months before we ultimately, got this project going, because we saw that there was a real need for, in-depth, accurate, fair coverage of, not just police issues, but all issues of community concern.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the trend was, less and less local coverage in the existing media outlets.
Right.
And, the coverage for television and radio would usually be folks from New York coming in here for
Right.
one day
Mhm.
and covering the thing and then heading out. And, we really saw a void where, there was a need for a good, reliable, trusted, community-oriented news
Mhm.
outlet. And so we sought to start one, and, it grew into a pretty amazing and special thing.
Yes, it sure did. And how many years strong are you guys?
We're coming up on 10 years. This will be 10 years.
Wow.
Next month. Yeah, right.
Are you gonna have a party?
I think we should. We'll
I think
have
you
to
have to
we'll have
do
to have a party.
something.
That's a good call. Yeah, we will.
We'll help you.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Let's do
because
it.
I think that's so important.
For
And
sure.
I think even just a lot of us who in college, we wanted to start journalism or even just wanted to try it. You gave a lot of us a chance to just try and see. And I think it would be cool to get all of us back
Get the
together
band back
too.
together,
Yes,
yeah,
and
for
just,
sure.
and especially the people of New Brunswick who read the newspaper.
Right,
And
right.
I think it would be really cool. We're gonna talk about that.
Okay.
Okay, next question. How, why, what inspired you to run for mayor?
Yeah. A really, unique situation here in New Brunswick, right? Most cities, you would figure, there's already this one void in the journalism world that
Yeah.
I can fill that. And, in a healthy democracy, I'd be able to go to the government meetings and write about what one side says and what the other side says back, and kind of, synthesize what's happening for the audience. But in New Brunswick, we don't have really a political opposition.
Mm-hmm.
There's just the machine, the
Right.
political machine, the same families that have run the city since before we were born.
Wow.
And, these days there's, no opposition from any other party or any other faction of their party.
Mm.
It's just, the powers that be in charge, doing what they want. And what really worried me is when, in 2014, no one even ran against the mayor or his running mates.
I didn't know that.
2014, right around the time we were working together, there was an election, but the voters didn't have a choice. There was just one name on that ballot, Jim Cahill.
Wait,
And
sorry,
that was
but that's kind of crazy.
yeah, so that was scary to me, right? Because that was his 7th election, and now nobody's even running against him, not in the primary or the general. Sometimes it was, he'd get a pass in one, but he'd face an opponent in the other. This time, both the primary and the general, nobody challenged him. And nobody challenged the 2 council members who were also up for re-election. So for all practical purposes, the people in New Brunswick lost that election. Didn't have a debate, a discussion, didn't have a choice. And so when I saw the same thing shaking out and playing out in 2018, I said, I'm at a point in my life where I'm stable and I can, put myself out there to give the voters a choice and force the machine to have that debate and that discussion and work for it and actually, give the people what they deserve, an election, a real election. And we, I think, succeeded in that. I think we exceeded many people's expectations, and it was a really rewarding experience getting to see the changes that we brought just by running.
Right. And a lot of people don't value, no, a lot of people don't, I'll say, appreciate how much change, no, they don't really know how much change they can make just by
Right.
doing.
Exercising their rights that we all have. Yeah.
Just by doing or saying, or just by, there was a quote when you walked in, I was on the phone. And as I was on the phone, I'm looking through books and I'm just flipping it open. And there was a quote about defeat versus failure and how a defeat is not the same as a failure, and how in a defeat, there may be seeds of success.
Right.
I'm paraphrasing. But so just like in your situation, you did not fail because there were changes, there were consequences, there were things that
Absolutely.
happened just because you said, I'm doing this.
Yeah, and I mean, the coolest thing about it was that I got to meet so many people who, gave their time, volunteered, came in every day to try to pull off this upset. And they're some of my best friends today.
Wow.
There's really super solid community leaders from around Middlesex County who I just wouldn't have gotten the chance to bond with them and know them and make those friendships if I hadn't put myself out there and created that space.
Everything happens for a reason.
Right on. Absolutely.
And New Brunswick is only, I think, 5 square miles.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people here.
Yeah. We've got about 60,000 residents.
And what I like is that it's a community, like you said, when some word travels fast and if you put yourself out there, you get to meet a lot of people very, very, very quickly.
Yeah. It was, kind of like a roller coaster every day. And it was great for me. I just really, was in my element, got to do what I love. And, it was just really heartwarming to get to meet so many people who were happy to see a challenge and happy to vote for me.
Right. Would you ever run again?
Quite possibly. I think it's, something that, if we find ourselves in a unique situation again, I feel like, I'd be in a better position now than I was then. I've definitely made progress in a lot of areas and learned a lot too.
Right.
So, if the opportunity arises, I'd certainly consider it.
Wow. I'm laughing because in my mind, I'm on your Facebook page looking at videos. How do you get the confidence to go against, as someone said on the phone, because I was talking to Zaire. I was like, do you know Charlie from the Yeah. He said, I really like Charlie because he's not afraid to go against the status quo. You walked in on that conversation.
Right.
How do you get the confidence to go against status quo?
Well, I feel like I have a strong connection to, the local community here in New Brunswick. And so, in my conversations with them, I gather that there is widespread dissatisfaction with the status quo.
Absolutely.
People who are actually, living here in New Brunswick, not the people who, come once a week from out of town or, have businesses here, but don't actually live here 24/7. Those folks are really ready for a big change. They don't want status quo. They know what they're getting and it's not enough. They don't like it. It's, really like, with the same leadership for so long, we get the same old solutions to the problems that aren't actually solving them. They're in fact creating new problems or making things worse, like, poverty, addiction, the criminal justice system, right? These are things that are holding people back, holding our city back. And, we need to, I often say we have a crisis of priorities, right? Downtown development, real estate deals are priority number one for the people in charge. And that's why you have out-of-towners making decisions for New Brunswick. But really the things we should be prioritizing: education, healthcare, clean water, the things that these 60,000 people need to survive, not the fantasies and visions of, wealthy oligarchs. So I think there's a real disconnect between like what the leadership thinks the priorities should be and what the average resident thinks. And I think that's, why a lot of people want to see a change here. They're not seeing the most important priorities addressed, but they're seeing all sorts of investments in very specific, companies or institutions here in the city that, just like the imbalance is so stark. You can walk, 2 blocks away and see a totally different world.
And just like I was saying before, the power of the people. Ray and I are actually putting out a book of poetry called Power from the People. So there's 2 kind of parts. in some instances, power comes from the people. In some instances, power is being taken from the people and recycled in other ways. And we always talk about exactly what you're saying. One of the big issues that I think should be prioritized is homelessness in New Brunswick.
Oh, sure.
Will it ever go away? Even though it seems as though there is the means to do so.
We did a fascinating story when the census results came out,
Mhm.
and it showed that we had, a significant increase in the number of housing units here,
I heard about that.
but they're vacant,
Yeah, I heard about that.
right? So whether it's buildings that are, boarded up, or these new buildings that they're not finding tenants for, there's houses sitting there vacant, over 1,000 in New Brunswick. So, we definitely have the capacity and the resources to, completely solve the homelessness problem and give everybody a house. It's doable with what we've got already.
Wow.
But, obviously not the priority, because if it was, it'd be done. So yeah, and just to get back to your earlier question, yes, how do I get the confidence? So
Yes.
I get the confidence from knowing that the people, if they were in the position I was in and be able to get access to the governor, or be at the event where all the big wigs are, and that I'm asking the questions that the community would want answers to.
Right.
I'm not just palling around and kind of wasting that opportunity. Every time I'm there, I want to get the most of it, because I know there's people who aren't going to get the chance to raise their issue or confront the person who's holding them down. So I try to take every chance I get to ask the toughest question I can, or make people think about issues that they might be glossing over because of their perspective and their blind spots. So it's definitely like it comes from the people.
Have you always been the type of person, as a child, young adult, that has never been afraid to ask a question? Like, were your parents or guardians like, Charlie, don't say that? Parents are like,
Well, you'd have to ask my parents and my teachers their take on it. But I definitely do remember, trying to be creative, but also, not afraid to take on a challenge or a battle. There's all sorts of things when you're a kid that you go through, from dealing with teachers and administrators and rules and all that stuff, to dealing with your parents and their, policies and what they want to happen. And so I was not afraid to fight for a change that I thought was important, or to, object if something was wrong that I thought was going on. And yeah, that's kind of continued.
When you come up a lot, I'm sure even not with me, but everyone, because everyone knew it was you in the paper, and they're always like, Charlie, he's not afraid to say anything. That's one of the first things that people say, is that you're not afraid to say anything. And I appreciate what you said about when you have the opportunity, you take it to ask the tough questions.
Right.
And our son's name is Truth. We named him that because we want him to live, grow, embody truth in everything that he does. And so, we envision him being a journalist one day, which would make sense considering his parents. And one thing that I learned, I started journalism from Brunswick Today. The way that you ask the question is very important. And so, and I learned this also from just talking to parents, because you ask a child a certain question, and the way that you ask it, the answer that you get depends on what you ask.
Right.
And so someone could answer your question and not tell a lie, but it's still
They could spin you.
they could spin you.
Yeah.
So, how did you learn how to phrase your questions in a way to where you're getting the answer that you know is the truth?
Yeah, I mean, you ask questions for a lot of different reasons. So sometimes I'm trying to prompt a quote that I can use in an article, right? I'm trying to write an article. I want to get a particular person's perspective on a particular issue. So I want to ask in the way that's going to prompt them to address the most precise issue I can. And if they're slippery, they'll answer a different question, right? They won't answer the question you give them. They'll say something else they want to say. And, that's why the most important thing is to keep asking. If you don't get the answer, then you're entitled to ask again. If it's still unanswered, ask again, keep asking. And, I definitely have learned that that's one thing you've got to do. And yeah, I do think that, over time, I've learned a lot of effective strategies to ask questions, just hanging out with other reporters and being in these events where there's multiple people asking questions and kind of, seeing how different strategies work or don't work.
Right.
But yeah, definitely, one of the most important skills, and something that incidentally kids are great at.
Yes.
Nothing I love more than doing a career day at an elementary school or middle school.
Because you could point out the reporters, right?
They're all great. They all ask. They don't hold back.
Yeah.
You just say, I'll answer anything, and they just hit you with every very creative questions that just make you think, because they have such a wonderful perspective and don't have the inhibitions that adults do sometimes.
Yes, and being a mother reminds you of all those things, and it reminds you to go back to that and to tap into that, and so that's funny. I'm just imagining my son being 3 years old, 4 years old. Yes, even now he'll point at anything and say, bug, moon, zipper. Yeah. But we encourage that. We want him to ask questions. And like I said before, sooner than people think, Truth is going to be the one interviewing people. And I think people are going to be quite surprised. And, we encourage everyone who's parents, who has a child, to take what they like and cultivate it. If they like asking questions, maybe they could be a journalist. You should do little interviews where they interview people in their family, and then you never know, they might have a newspaper on that.
Right.
I think New Brunswick Today should be on television.
Well, when we started, we did no video, really, almost no video. It was just the written word and some, low-res pictures. But these days, more and more, what we're doing is on camera. We all, have a device that I could go live, speak to hundreds or thousands of people if we're at the scene of a crime or a protest or some breaking news. And that's just something that we couldn't envision back then, and didn't really have part of the mission or the components of our operation. But these days, we, a lot of times we'll do a video and not an article. We'll just go and record a whole meeting and put the whole meeting on YouTube, or we'll do a special report live from the scene of whatever, and it might not make its way into the written word. These days, we prioritize those videos and stuff. And yeah, I think that TV and whatever TV is changing.
What does that even mean anymore,
changing
right?
all the time. But yeah, we definitely have a strong connection with our audience through that, and it's the type of thing where now I get recognized a lot more around town as people see me, actually giving the news presentation myself. So it's something where I think you'll see a lot more of that, not just with New Brunswick Today, but with all media outlets, doing more and more video. And who knows what the future holds for technology and how people will actually watch it. But there's definitely going to be a lot more video content, I think, and especially the live stuff.
Yeah, because this could essentially be TV.
Yeah, here we are.
We're on TV.
We are.
But I do love still the written word.
Of course.
We must all make sure that the written word is still alive and well, because, you know, when you have a newspaper in your hand, you can save it.
Right.
And you could show it and you could store it and you can pass it down. One thing with, and I told Raymond, we have so much printing to do because all of the articles that I've written, and I had a column in at Rutgers, I want those things in my hand so I could show my children, like, look, I wrote this. And even the newspapers, like I save when things happen. You know, back in the day, you would cut stuff out.
I've got a whole mess of them.
You will cut it out and save it. And so, you know, just a plug for the written word that we just also need to preserve it.
For sure.
Okay. Let's talk about the flood. Because I saw your video.
Hurricane Ida.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Did your house get flooded?
We had several inches of water in the basement, but nothing was damaged, you know,
Okay.
everything was elevated or
That's good.
protected, you know, so thankfully got through it okay.
Yeah, because we actually, now we live an hour away.
Mhm.
And then when it happened, we were fine down there. And then we were seeing all the New Brunswick businesses closed, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I'm not kidding. I'm like, let me go on New Brunswick Today because I know they have something. And I saw the video and I was blown away. I'm serious. I've never seen anything like that. And to know that it happened, I mean, every time you never think that it would happen like in your backyard. How did you get there? Did you drive there or did you walk?
So there were a couple of videos I did. One was the highway, Route 18, when it was underwater.
Yes.
And then the other one that I did a couple of times was Joyce Kilmer Avenue, where the creek had overflowed and totally, you know, destroyed an apartment building. And, so you know, one I walked to and the other I drove to, but yeah, it was really a sight to see. And I think that, you know, it was, you know, I kind of realized halfway through the video how serious it was, because you know, you'd be there and you're looking at the damage and, you know, damage looks bad, but then you've got people that are like hollering at you to say, hey, you got to hear what happened. They're kicking us out of the building and we don't know where we're going to go. And, you know, people saw that I was doing a broadcast and they didn't want to hide or get out of the picture. They wanted me to talk to them and you know, share their experience with, you know, everybody else, because they felt unheard. They felt like they weren't getting the help they needed. And thankfully we were able to elevate this to the state and the city and get them emergency housing. And who knows what would have happened if we weren't there. We were the only journalists, the only reporters that were really covering this particular part of the flooding. You can find a lot of people that covered Route 18 being flooded, you know, Rutgers football changing the date of the game. But we were the only ones that were actually going to the area where the community had been flooded out and you know, really talking to them and you know, giving a voice to them. So it was really kind of you know, unexpected experience for me. I thought we were just going to go and see, you know, some physical damage, but we had people, you know, begging for help.
So you said Joyce Kilmer, right? Joyce
Kilmer Avenue near Charles Street by the Greater Brunswick Charter School. That area has flooded the whole time I've been here. Every time there's a serious storm, and they try to do things to address it, but obviously not enough.
There was a woman who came by the bookstore because she found a book at the train station, because we leave books around town and stuff. And someone's picking out a book right now.
Yes.
She was in an apartment building over by Joyce Kilmer, and her 12-year-old daughter left with just their clothes. It was nighttime. They have pajamas on and flip-flops. And they were in a basement apartment. Everything was submerged in water. And so all of their books were gone. So, you know, they racked up on books, and they just so happened to come the day before we were getting some laptops and computers donated. So they got a laptop, but it was just she was the first person that I met physically who was affected, who I saw pictures, and I was flabbergasted.
Right. Yeah, no, that building in particular was just devastated. You know, folks had to
Wow.
be rescued out the second floor.
That's what she said.
And yeah, it was just a real disaster.
Were you scared?
I mean, I wasn't necessarily scared, but I was definitely, you know, empathizing with these people who didn't know where they were going to stay. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I can only imagine if you lived in the same place 20 years,
Mhm.
and now
it's
you've got 4
destroyed.
days to find a new place to live,
Mhm.
and none of your stuff. You know, I mean, that was just, you could definitely, you know, tell it was a desperate situation.
Have you ever reported on a situation where you were scared? Like you were like, oh, this is real right
Certainly,
now.
I've had some, you know, very scary encounters. You know, most recently, you know, we've had several murders in New Brunswick, and
I heard about that yesterday.
you know, 2 of them, both in the same week, were in the same location, 1 block away from my house. So, so this was a situation where, you know, I'm scared for, you know, my girlfriend, my housemates, my, you know, people that live on the block, people that, you know, are you know, homeless in the area, and you know, you definitely, like, you've seen increases in violence in the past, but I don't remember anything like this in my time here where it was this bad. You have 3 murders in a week, and you know, unfortunately, a lot of, you know, disrespect from, you know, the people that should be, you know, out in front on these issues. I'm talking about the political leadership and the police, the top brass of the police department. You know, just, you know, not giving it the serious respect it deserves. That this is an issue we've got to, like, you know, address, like,
Now.
swiftly. Yeah, like like it's like before somebody else loses their life. So yeah, so definitely was a little scary doing some broadcasts in the past week. You know, at that corner, and I had a police lieutenant kind of, you know, getting in my face, pushing me back, saying, you gotta get back, and you know, that's never a pleasant experience.
Right. Yeah, the other day there was an elder in the community who has been here all his life, who also said that he's never seen this much violence here and squeezed in such a short time like that.
Right. It's very bad.
Yeah. Gotta make a change. Some has to change.
Right on.
Some has to change. Okay. On a lighter note, let's lighten it up, everybody. But not forget that these issues do exist and that they do need to be addressed, and that we as New Brunswickians need to come together and figure something out for the future children and generations of residents who will live here. Okay. So you are very much so a community organizer.
Yeah.
And have been so for many years.
Right.
Okay. Can we please talk about some of these important organizations that you are part of?
Sure. So yeah, I guess my first job out of college was working for NJ Perg, where we did the canvassing, you know, door-to-door outreach and fundraising work, and you know, I was a canvas director there. And then I moved on, like I said, to well, actually, Food and Water Watch was the next place I worked on. It was a 6-week campaign to stop the privatization of Trenton's water system. It was on the ballot, yes or no. Do you want to sell the water system? And we crushed it. 80% of the vote. Stop it. And we were outspent, you know, 30 to 1 or more. You know, the American Water had spent $1 million trying to trick the people, trick them into selling their water. And, so that was a great experience. And then the next thing I did was Citizens Campaign, where I was the Patterson organizer, taught people how to get involved in their local government, their political parties, how to be citizen journalists, and of course started the Patterson Press with Joe Malaconico, and did that for a year and a half. And then around the time I was talking about before, left that, started New Brunswick Today, and even worked in a supermarket and other kinds of jobs to make ends meet. And these days I'm back working with Food and Water Watch on some really important issues, like trying to stop gas power plants and pipelines from being built all over central Jersey, and also trying to accelerate the transition to renewable energy, get off of these polluting methods of generation that all the leading scientists are telling us we have to do if we want to survive.
Which doesn't make sense. I encourage everybody to tap into the local organizations where you live who are addressing environmental issues, because it's very, very important. There was a Rutgers grad teacher that came in here a few hours before you came, and her husband is a doctoral student for plant bio something. But she was telling me about how they have a plant. They have one plant in their house for any type of illness that you may come across. She says if she gets sick, he'll be like, oh, this is good. Boil, drink, done. And but what happens if you're boiling your food in polluted water?
Yeah, or you can't grow the plants.
Or you cannot grow the
need
plants
to treat.
Yeah.
Things. Yeah, no, it's we're fighting for nothing less than our future here and the future of people like truth.
That's right.
So it's a very high stakes battle, and that's why I work so hard to try to educate, because that's the first step. Is people need to know what's going on in order to be empowered to fully make the changes.
When you know better, you do better.
Right on.
I want to end it right there. When you know better, you do better. Thank you so much, Charlie.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. This was great. And I hope anybody who watches this video, please share it. And please check out New Brunswick Today, your local newspaper, going 10 years strong. 10 years going on 100, 1,000, 1,000,000. But seriously, that's not, think about like CBS, Disney. All of these companies where it gets generations and generations long. I was talking to an author about this morning. It should not be unfathomable for us to think that the projects, this bookstore, the newspaper, the things that we create that are important, that are for the people, it shouldn't be unfathomable to think that it could be here long after we may be gone.
Absolutely. That's the thing with technology these days, is that the goal is to have it last forever, have it be accessible forever, and to keep doing it. Generation after generation. New Brunswick's been around more than 300 years. We want New Brunswick Today to be around for a whole mess of time like that.
Yep, 3,000 years plus. I was here. Thank you, John.
My pleasure. Thank you.